Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I am Dr. Muhammad Latif, welcoming you at Access Aid Trust Hospital. Today is the lecture number 6, and the learning objectives of the today's lecture are that after the lecture you will be able to define hemophilia B and acquired hemophilia. You will be able to enumerate the different clinical manifestations of these disorders, and you will be able to enlist the laboratory findings of these disorders, and you will learn the treatment modalities of these disorders. Hemophilia B is also known as Christmas disease. It is defined as an inherited X-linked recessive disorder that results in the deficiency of the functional plasma coagulation factor number 9. And in hemophilia A, the deficiency is that of factor number 8, coagulation factor 8. It is because of the spontaneous mutation and acquired immunological processes which result in this disorder. It constitutes about 20% of the total hemophilia cases. I mean hemophilia A, hemophilia B, acquired hemophilia, etc., and other relevant disorders. For better understanding of the hemophilia A and B, you need to know the coagulation pathway. There are two pathways, intrinsic pathway and extrinsic pathway, and in the intrinsic pathway we start from the activation of the factor 12A and ultimately via activation of 9A, and then the formation of the factor 8, and on the other side from the extrinsic pathway only single factor, which is factor 7, it is activated, and they both, factor 8 and 7A, then unitedly they act upon the factor 10. Then factor 10 and factor 5, they make a combination or a group, and they convert the prothrombin into thrombin. Thrombin then acts upon the fibrinogen, and fibrinogen is with the action of the thrombin, fibrinogen is converted into thrombin, which is a fibrin sealant. And then when the factor 13A acts upon the fibrin is transformed into the clot formation. So in a summary, you have to remember that the final step, or one step ahead further, you have to remember that factor 10A and factor 5 are the most crucial and important two factors which are responsible for the conversion of the prothrombin into thrombin, and thrombin converts the fibrinogen into fibrin, which is a clot actually. And on the other hand, the little role is also played by but final role is played by the factor 13A. So remember, factor 10A, factor 5, prothrombin to thrombin, and then factor 13A for the ultimate clot formation. This is when at any site there is problem, or any factor at any level there is a deficiency or dysfunctional ability of that factor, then the coagulation or bleeding phenomena is disrupted and bleeding occurs, and we call them as bleeding or coagulation disorders. Here in our case, we discussed the hemophilia A, which was because of the factor 8 deficiency. Now the factor 8 is acting upon the hair at the factor 10. It acting upon the factor 10, and where is the factor 9? Factor 9 is above, a little step back. Factor 9 is converted into 9A, then it acts upon the factor 8. So hemophilias are close to each other. If 8 is deficient, we call it hemophilia A, and if the one step above factor is deficient, which is factor 9, we call it as hemophilia B or Christmas disease. The common signs and symptoms of the hemophilias, and now especially of the hemophilia B, are that there is bleeding especially into the joints, which may be painful, and long-term inflammation of the synovium and cartilage will result in the deterioration of the joints, resulting in the permanent deformities and misalignment of the joints, and there will be loss of mobility as well, and then the deformities may go to the extent that the extremities may become unequal. In mild hemophilia, bleeding with trauma or surgery may be there. In moderate and severe hemophilia, neonates may be the victims. There will be prolonged bleeding and hematoma after procedures like circumcision, phlebotomy, immunizations, and sometimes the patient can straightway present to you with the ICH, which is the acronym of intracerebral hemorrhage. The toddler, after trauma, the related tissue can have hemorrhage. There may be in the toddler's oral bleeding during teething process, and the teeth are being erupting. There may be gum bleeding in the toddlers, and in the children they can present to you in Christmas disease with hemarthrosis and hematomas, with increasing physical activity or exertion or sports, etc. And the patient can have later on develop or transform into the chronic arthropathy, and the patient can also have traumatic intracerebral hemorrhage. The signs and symptoms of the infectious diseases like HIV and hepatitis should also be considered in cases of Christmas disease or hemophilia B. Continuing the signs and symptoms, the patient will be having tachycardia, the patient may be tachypneic, patient will also be having orthostasis, and in the musculoskeletal system the joints will be tender, and there will be pain on mobilization or movements. There will be range of the movement will be decreased, and sometimes the swelling or effusion of the joint is very vividly found in patients, and on palpation the joints will be warm because of the effusion that is actually the blood or hemarthrosis. The neurological abnormalities may be that the patient can have altered mental status, and patient can also have meningismus. In GI tract, there may be hepatic or splenic tenderness and peritoneal signs because of the, of course, bleeding. In the genitourinary system, the patient can have bladder spasms, distension of the bladder, painful bladder, and the patient can also have costovertebral angle pain. At other sites, hematoma leading to the signs will be dependent upon which location is having the hematoma. If there is airway obstruction, the patient can also suffer from the compartment syndrome, right? So the hematoma will produce the symptoms as to what site or location at what site or location it occurs. The examples are airway obstruction and compartment syndrome, which I will be explaining to you in the coming slides. In the investigations, first you should perform the CBC. The CBC may be normal or low. Hemoglobin levels, normal or low hemoglobin levels, normal platelet count, and coagulation studies may be encountered in milder cases. And then you go for the factor 9 assay. In mild disease, you should expect that if the patient is having 5% around of the coagulation factor, then it is a mild disease. If the disease is moderate, then the range of the factor 5 assay, factor 9 assay will be 1 to 5%, and in severe cases the factor 9 assay will be less than 1%. Okay, so the total range of the factor 9 is 1 to 5%. If around 5% mild disease, if 1 to 5% moderate disease, and if below 1% it is severe disease. So remember the two figures 1 and 5. Below 1 severe disease, around 5 mild disease, and in between there is moderate disease. Then next you check the von Willebrand factor and factor 8 levels. Exclude von Willebrand deficiency as primary diagnosis. Then you have to do the screening test for HIV and hepatitis. As I mentioned earlier, they may be implicated in the pathogenesis of the hemophilia B or Christmas disease. Then you have to check the genetics of the patient, especially in the fetuses. Further investigations, imaging studies include CT brain for ICH or intracerebral hemorrhage, MRI of the brain and spinal cord for intraspinal hemorrhage and paraspinal hemorrhages to assess the cartilages of the vertebrae and bones and joints and synovia of the joint spaces, and then you do the ultrasonography of the joints to detect any effusions, and you also do the joint x-rays for any degenerative changes which are late features in the pathogenesis of the hemophilia B or Christmas disease. Management of hemophilia B. First of all, you have to, first agenda should be to control the hemostasis or restore the hemostasis. Then you treat the bleeding episodes. How do you do? You do it by administration of the factor replacement products and some medications. The use of the factor inhibitors is also is a modality in the hemophilia B patients. Then rehabilitation of the patients in hemophilia synovitis, or in cases where the joint are the major targets of the disease. Then primary and secondary prophylaxis is also considered, rather done in cases of the hemophilia B cases. The drugs which are used or pharmacotherapy which is applied or used in the management of the hemophilia includes that you offer the factor 9 containing products, factor 9 itself, then recombinant factor 9 and factor 9 complex also. These three products you have to must remember: factor 9, recombinant factor 9 and factor 9 complex. These are the mainstay of our treatment in cases of hemophilia B. Then recombinant coagulation factor 7A can also be used as an alternative in cases of hemophilia B patients. Sometimes the recombinant coagulation factor 9 mentioned earlier in the first line is also the drug of choice. Then antifibrinolytic agents like aminocaproic acid and transamine are the other supportive drugs in the management of the hemophilia B as well as in the hemophilia A. Then anti-hemophilic agents, desmopressin is also here a drug of choice, and then anti-inhibitor coagulation complexes, human anti-hemophilic factor, recombinant anti-hemophilic factor, plasma-derived prothrombin complex concentrates, and plasma-derived coagulation factor 9 concentrates are also. You simply remember them by heart because they are mandatory to be remembered, and they have a crucial role in the control or management of the hemophilia B. Continuing the management, we use the monoclonal antibodies in cases which are refractory to the factor 9 complexes or recombinant factor 9 and factor 7. If they fail, then you to go an extra mileage, and in those cases the monoclonal antibody like rituximab are the drugs which are helpful tremendously. For symptomatic relief, analgesia, narcotic agents, sometimes milder NSAIDs and acetaminophen with codeine is the drug of choice for analgesia. The deterrence or prevention is done as in hemophilia A. What do? The activity is limited. I mean the sports or strenuous exercises, gymnastics, etc. The patient is warned that you should not be indulged in the strenuous exertion or activity or very hectic sports, which can lead on to the bleeding into the deeper tissues as well as into the joints as well as into the muscles. So that is the reason for limitation of the activities in the hemophilias. Then gene therapy similar to the hemophilia A, and complications are similar as in hemophilia A. And then you treat if you concomitantly the patient is suffering from hepatitis B, that is the patient of hemophilia B is simultaneously suffering from hepatitis B, you treat it with the antiviral therapy, and if the patient is suffering from HIV or AIDS, then you treat it with the antiretroviral therapy. Now the signs of the hemophilia B, you see, there is a large hemarthrosis. In this case, there is a bleeding into the joint space, and the patient is having very large swollen joint, and it is a florid sign. The right joint is also partly deformed, right knee joint, and you can do the ultrasound in this case, and you can do the CT or MI also in this case to see the damage done to the synovium and cartilage, etc. Now in the whole body, you see, I mentioned earlier that it depends which side of the body is affected. Now at the top is the airway obstruction because of bleeding, right? So then you have to treat with a major dose of the factor. Then you come to the deltoid muscle. If there is a bleeding because of the activity, here the compartment syndrome can happen. Compartment syndrome findings will be found, which are actually the pressure findings, and large bleeding into the deltoid muscle, and similarly the thigh or calf muscle on the right side, you see in the legs. The compartment syndromes can usually occur in the limbs, upper limb and lower limbs, and the main features of the compartment syndrome are that the patient can have pain, patient can have pulselessness, and the patients can have paresthesias, and the patient can have paralysis if you do not intervene at an appropriate time or urgently. Okay, then in the buttocks you can have pain with swelling, and the treatment is with the usual factor 9 replacement, major factor, if the leg on the affected side exhibits tingling or swelling. So here is the case that the patient is having paresthesias. Then the iliopsoas bleeds can present to you with the flex hip, and patient will be complaining of pain, and the patient will also be complaining of inability to extend the leg on the affected side, and you have to treat that patient with a major dose of the factor. Then the soft tissue bleeding in the lower arm. Earlier I mentioned the deltoid muscle. Here the patient become non-functional, the arm can become non-functional, and there will be tenderness but no severe pain, and in this case the no factor replacement is required. So in the lower arm the bleeding is lesser in amount and it can resolve automatically without the administration of the factor 9. So remember, all these sites, they are very important because these are the major sites which are the targets of the hemophilia B. Therefore you remember these sites, and the site dependent bleeding can give you the diagnosis. And remember that the compartment syndrome and airway obstruction, they are more important because they are sometimes, if they are very sometimes lead to the seriousness. If the airway is obstructed, the patient can die, and if there is compartment syndrome untreated, the paralysis can happen. So these two things are these two sites are to be looked upon very carefully. Now coming to the acquired hemophilia. First of all, the definition: acquired hemophilia may be a life-threatening disorder caused by the development of autoantibodies or inhibitors. So in this acquired hemophilia, automatically there are autoantibodies against the factor 8, against the coagulation factor 8. What are the signs and symptoms? You see, there may be bleeding into the skin, bleeding into the muscle and soft tissues, and the patient can bleed from the mucous membranes, and sometimes the patient bleeds into the joints also. The acquired hemophilias are diagnosed by checking the routine BT, PT, APTT and EPTT examination, and in other words the coagulation profile, and BT and PT are usually normal, and APTT is prolonged, and it is prolonged irreversibly. I mean, it will not be reversing to normal until unless intervene or treated. Then factor 8 level should be done, it may be low, and sometimes the presence of the factor 8 inhibitors are also found or available in the circulation, which are usually the antibodies. How will you investigate the acquired hemophilias? You do the quantification test of the inhibitory factors, and you also exclude the lupus anticoagulant if APTT values during mixing studies are similar at time 0 and after incubation. So the crucial point is APTT. If the values are similar at 0 and after the incubation, then you have to go for the investigation of the lupus syndrome, in which the lupus anticoagulant tests are performed, which are anticardiolipin antibodies or lupus anticoagulant. And then you have to screen for the heparin, right, which can cause or lead into the bleeding. So levels of the screening in the blood should also be done. The treatment is treat the underlying cause or disorder, discontinue any drug, and also eliminate the inhibitors. Then high doses of factor 8 ranging from 200 international unit per kg IV bolus you start with, and then TDS it is given. The desmopressin, as usual, is also used in the hemophilia B. It is also given in acquired hemophilias in low titers in inhibitor cases, and in moderate to severe cases you have to add the recombinant factor 7. Remember, factor 7 is also used in the hemophilia B, and it is also used in the acquired hemophilia. In case of severe bleeding, and high inhibitor titer, then you have to make use of the recombinant factor 7A or APCC, which is activated prothrombin complex concentrated. So remember APCC and factor 7A in those patients of acquired hemophilias who present to you with the severe bleeding. Continuing the treatment, you do the immunosuppression for the eradication of the inhibitors, and the treatment, the drugs which are given in the immunosuppression, they include methylprednisolone, prednisolone in the oral form, as well as the cyclophosphamide in the oral form can be used in these cases for immunosuppression. In the refractory those cases of hemophilia, acquired hemophilias which are refractive or unresponsive to immunosuppressive therapy, then you have to make use of the monoclonal antibody rituximab, as in case of hemophilia B. Then finally, the salvage therapy is done in severe cases with the help of the drug known as cyclosporine in patients with underlying SLE. So remember this, that SLE should also be always kept in mind when the patient presents to you with the bleeding and you are suspecting or you have reached the conclusion that the patient is not suffering from hemophilia A, nor the patient is suffering from hemophilia B, rather the patient is suffering from acquired hemophilia, then you have to test for the SLE also, which is first you do the ANA and then you do the anti-double stranded DNA. And if the SLE have an association with the acquired hemophilia, or it is the underlying etiology, then you have to make use of the salvage therapy with the help of the cyclosporine. So in nutshell, the SLE associated acquired hemophilia, the salvage therapy is made use of, and cyclosporine is the drug of choice. The other diseases which can present with which are actually the acquired hemophilias, they include the liver diseases and malabsorption. In the liver disease, there is production of complicated bleeding disorder because of the decreased or poor synthesis of the clotting factors, which are factor 2, 7, 9 and 10, and because of the malabsorption or poor absorption of the vitamin K, and also because of the abnormal platelet functions. Now finally, the malabsorption can also lead to the acquired hemophilias, and it is because of the decreased uptake of the vitamin K, which is needed for the, as I mentioned earlier, for the synthesis of the factor 2, factor 7, factor 9 and factor 10. Then how do you treat? You have to treat with the intravenous vitamin K. The dose should be 10 mg per kg IV. In acute hemorrhage, you will have to use the human prothrombin complex or fresh frozen plasma or FFP. Now you see the signs of the acquired hemophilias. This guy or old man has presented with acquired hemophilia. You see the upper part of the torso, there is bleeding into the skin, right? The front of the torso. Now extensive skin bleeding on the back of the torso. You see from the upper back to buttock gluteal region, there is bleeding into the skin, extensive bleeding into the skin. So if you find a bluish person like this, large bruises up to covering the whole of the back, then you should suspect that the patient might be a case of acquired hemophilia. Now the skin bleeding on the abdomen, whole of the abdomen, and is also extending up to the level of the, or rather above the level of the nipples, and so this can also be a mode of presentation of the acquired hemophilia. See, the back of the torso, front of the torso, and limbs, they can all have extensive skin bleedings. See, here the thighs and the left side, there is extensive bleeding into the leg and lower part of the thigh also. Conclusion. Having delivered the 2 lectures on the bleeding or coagulation disorders, what the conclusion or take home message for you is that the von Willebrand disease presents with spontaneous bleeding with trivial or major injuries or surgical procedures. Hemophilia A presents with bleeding into joints after injuries or surgical procedures, and the patient can present also with deep spinal cord syndrome, and sometimes the patient can present with GI bleeding and the compartment syndromes, which I have told you. The airway can be blocked, and the compartment syndrome usually involve the limbs, the deltoid region and the calf regions. The hemophilia B presents with the bleeding into the major joints, into the soft tissues and muscles. And finally, in acquired hemophilia, the patients present with bleeding into the skin and mucous membranes, sometimes the joints and muscles and soft tissues also. Now finally, you are doing well, you are solving the assignments. It is the standing order of the chairman that mark this only those students who solve the assignment within the stipulated time, which is 45 minutes. Now the first assignment, today's assignment is 3 SEQs. The first one is that SEQ 1 is that 8-year-old boy presents to Department of Pediatric Dentistry with a history of prolonged bleeding from teeth after hurting his mouth while playing. On general physical examination, the boy is pale and lethargic. On intraoral examination, there is hematoma and swelling inside the cheeks, and the lab investigation shows platelets about 40,000, BT 12 minutes, PT normal, APTT prolonged, coagulation factor activity was normal, and factor 9 was 1%. Now you can very easily guess 1%. What is the most likely diagnosis, what is the cause behind it, and how would you manage this patient? SEQ number 2. A male presents 65 years old to you with spontaneous hematoma in his right thigh with a past medical history of rheumatoid arthritis. Laboratory analysis shows there is everything normal, but only the APTT is prolonged. What is the most likely diagnosis? Justify your diagnosis, and how will you manage this patient? Last MCQ, a 2-year-old boy had fallen from chair. He developed swelling on right shoulder and upper arm. On examination, he had a hematoma of the right shoulder. There was no previous history of surgery, trauma or medication. After aspiration of hematoma, the patient developed profuse bleeding. See the important catch point, that after the aspiration of the hematoma, there is profuse bleeding from the deltoid. His mother said boy's cousin has similar bleeding problems. On investigations, HB is 8 gram per deciliter, hematocrit is 26%, platelet are 2 lakhs, BT is normal, PT is 12 seconds, APTT is 60 seconds, and thrombin time is normal. The test done shows which type of the disorder, what confirmatory test should be done, what is the pathophysiology of the disease. Thank you very much, and remember what the guy is saying. Sometimes real superheroes live in the hearts of the small children fighting big battles. So this guy is fighting a big battle. Guess what is the diagnosis? Okay, I pay thanks to all the listeners of 4th year MBBS, and I say goodbye to you from Akhtar Trust Hospital.